Welcome back. So tonight we've asked ourselves 4 questions. We've answered 3 successfully. The final question is where we are headed. How long will this last? My guests are in studio, Chief Investment Officer for Blackstar Global, Ajay Boateng, and Professor Theo Echampong, who's an economist. So we now jump to the million-dollar question. How long will this last?
I think the general market has been quite positive in terms of the response from the latest budget. There's a sense that there's a bit more sort of fiscal discipline or commitment to fiscal discipline, and that is, evident in sort of the number of appointments in terms of the ministry.
Cutting down government size.
So I think the market has responded quite positively towards that. We must not also forget that IMF, we're still under IMF program. So there's a little bit more of checks and balances in place. But I do agree with Professor Champong's sort of point on it, because the issue has always been around supply and demand, or your ability to be able to sort of get dollars, which will sort of help you sustain the currency. So the accumulation of the reserves is extremely positive. In fact, when you look at the first sort of 4 months, we are currently sort of, we've sold around like 2.7 billion. If you extrapolate that into the rest of the year, that is around 8.1 billion for the rest of the year, if we can sort of continue on that trajectory. So it is positive, but I think the market has been quite positive on some of the changes that the new administration is looking to do. Generally, there's a sense of optimism, even if you speak with some of the external investors. There's a general sense that
you had a chart that showed that in IMF program years, the currency is stronger than in non-IMF years. I would have loved you to show that, because if you can find the slide number, it will be very interesting, because both of you are saying that when fiscal discipline is guaranteed, somehow the market rewards you with a stronger currency. Once you throw away the checks, the market's like, these guys are not serious. So in a sense, we need the IMF to help stabilize our currency, which is quite bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to also take an objective sort of look at some of the policies, right? So one of the core problems that we have in the country is food imports, for example. So if you look at some of the policies that are being proposed, so Nkoko Nkete, for example,
Feed Ghana program.
Yes, that idea itself is actually very good. It's just the question of whether we can execute it. But there's a sense that I think is very, very positive if we can actually see it through. So there are pockets of glimpse of hope. You look at the code of conduct which the president is looking to sort of enforce. All of these are determined to ensure there's a little bit more prudence in terms of how we do things.
I think the final question is the most important, which is really the theme for the show today. How long will this last? So when I showed the Bloomberg chart, everybody agrees that from second week in April, the Cedi started getting stronger. So you're buying the dollar around 13.3, 13.4. How long will that line keep going down before we revert to factory settings? I'm going to start with you on this. What would you say? We've done 3 weeks of strengthening, right? So the question I'm asking is, how long will this black line keep going down until it flattens out? This black line that has been relatively straight and horizontal, big dip. First, you are answering that first. How long will this keep going down before we get back to?
I wish I knew all the answers, because then I would have actually gone to put some bets, some put options right around this and benefit from that. But I think, to be sort of straight to the point, I think that it could go down a little bit further, possibly maybe around the 12th mark, right? And this really all fundamentally, as my other panelists in the studio is saying, it comes down to sentiments, right? Investor expectations. It comes down to those who trade within the market, whether or not you're actually going to be able to balance the supply of the demand for dollars and the supply of it, right, within the country. And I think that if gold prices especially keep being high for the remainder of the year, we're actually in a much better position to drive down the rates much for all of us. Because for me, a sustained appreciation is what we want. What people don't want is the sharp dips, and then subsequently it goes all the way back up again. That is not good for anyone at all. And so basically you're planning with a sense that if, for example, it is between 12 to 13 cedis a dollar that you want, then that is what you expect for the rest of the year. And I think instead of being very emphatic about it, I would rather give us some indicators that you can actually look out for. One of them being, if we still see the gold price being extremely high for the rest of the year, I can bet you that the currency, the Cedi, is going to gain further to the dollar. Number two, on the fiscal side, when we come to the half year point, and we're already in May, so in July, the finance minister will come to Parliament and they'll present maybe the supplementary and half-year estimates. If we see even better numbers on the fiscal side, if we see more commitment on trying to rein in on expenditure and some of the things that have been said in the budget that was read in March, again, that positive signal will still feed through to the FX market, and that would further add an additional layer of comfort, and therefore we should expect to see further drop in the currency. It is difficult to forecast where it will fall, but I certainly know that depending on where the indicators would go, we are much likely to end in a much better position.
Okay. So if I hear you,
and then the last point, just a quick one, is for me, what does this do for the ordinary man on the street, my grandmother in the village? And this is where the inflation thing becomes extremely important. The end year target is around 15% or so. If this trend continues, then we should expect inflation to actually drop down further, and that is a credit to the administration and a credit to ordinary Ghanaians who have been suffering for the last 2 years.
Thank you. So you're saying if the gold price keeps strengthening, and if the media estimates from Atufosin continue in the austere, responsible manner, we will be rewarded with a stronger currency. Ajay Boateng, quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I agree with the points that Professor has made. And I think the direction is going to be very, very difficult to determine. But I think the confidence we can take from what has happened over the last couple of weeks is that the build-up of the gold reserve and the commitment from some of the actions that we're seeing with Gold Board to continue to sort of almost be at a point of contact would continue to strengthen our ability to get FX. Now, I agree with Professor's point in a sense that it is very, very difficult to pin it down, right? But my take is that, like, I think stability, being able to be stable for an extended period of time is perhaps more important than the downward trend, because that brings an element of predictability, so you can plan around that. And when you listen to what the governor said the last couple of weeks, his view was more around, okay, he much rather we stabilize it for maybe say the next 3, 4, 5 years at a stable rate, because that means that we're able to sort of plan, and the ordinary person can sort of plan their life properly. But I think things are in place. But another bit that one could sort of say is that, okay, can we use this to perhaps reduce some of the external debt, right? So if we've built up a bit of reserve, could we sort of reduce a little bit of the external debt so that the interest payments that we have to sort of pay actually comes down? Because let's hope it continues, but just in case it doesn't, we might sort of look back and say, hey, maybe we should.
So that windfall should be used to reduce the debt, so that long term, our macro numbers are looking better.
Yes, so that you're building that capacity. The other bit will be, okay, now that we're seeing this downward trend. Can we aggressively address some of the structural deficit that we have in the economy? So the food, the energy, manufacturing sector, our education is also one of them. So I think there are positive early signals, and it's whether we can sort of continue to execute.
Wow, thank you very much. We've been talking to Ajay Boateng, who is what's your role? Chief Investment Officer for Black Star Global, which is one of the world's foremost investment advisory organizations. Theo Champong is a professor of economics. He's an energy economy expert. He's based in Scotland. He's feeling very cold, but he's happy to join us. Theo, always good to see you. Thank you so much for your insights. Look, let's just do what we have to do to build the country, and may the Cedi be more stable. We prefer stable than volatile. My name is Bernard Avle. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.